Chapter 60 Space. I'll admit, I screamed for a while. It seemed that once more I found myself without a Namek. Except for this time, it was likely destroyed by my own hand. Fucking dead zone. I thought as I sensed around me as far as I could. I couldn't sense any life forms remaining within the general area of this part of the galaxy. It would seem that Kakarot had moved my mother further than I'd expected. Thinking about Kakarot caused a pang in my heart. Once more, the man was dead, a huge loss for the galaxy at large. His power had been growing at an extreme rate, nearly matching my own growth. Such a loss, I thought as I closed my eyes to the stars around me. Somewhere there would be a life force I could use instant transmission to pop to. I just needed to find it. ADF, $Y, HTP, QFH. The air crackled with energy as the frost demon worked, his outer calm facade belying the burning deep within him. He'd been a frost demon now for a combined 60 years and knew the inner workings of the construct better than any other. The shortcuts, the how-tos. You could say that few knew how it worked better than he did. As he seemingly casually worked through several screens worth of data at a time, a hardness came over his eyes. Ah, there we go, he thought, as his body began to glow, cracks forming all over. Looks like that won't be an issue any longer. Space do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, 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 I thought, while definitely focusing further and further out. Come on, KLL, concentrate, I thought furiously. You're not gonna find shit if you don't start paying weight. Yes, a planet brimming with energy filled my mind. I didn't recognize the area, so it was somewhere I had never been before. With a sharp twist of my energy, I was gone. Not even a pop to announce my exit. ADF, $Y, HTP, QFH. The air was once again calm, glinting lightly as he shifted between screens. He made notes, now and then, reading data at a blinding speed. With a tap, one of the many screens changes, showing a small figure beginning to glow. Ice leans forward, carefully studying the figure, before smiling. Universe 17, Timeline 1. Freezer Planet 2, a small frost demon, no taller than 4 feet, drops to one knee. A long gash drips blood down his side. His arm is scorched. His tail is absolutely broken in at least 2 places. As bad as the pain was, he couldn't help but smile in triumph. He wasn't sure how it had happened, but this entire playthrough had been racked with odd occurrences. From canon enemies appearing at random, to enemies being stronger than they once were. I don't know what I was thinking, he says, coughing lightly. Of course this Freezer would have golden form. The crumpled form of Freezer lay just a dozen feet away, cut into neat little chunks, some still wiggling with life. Glacier, as he was known in-game, was thankful that the version before him was the same one that fought Vegeta and Goku on Earth. His stamina was shit, so despite the power difference, he had been able to win this battle. With a glance, Freezer's body was destroyed, ending that threat once and for all. Clap, 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 Glacier whips around, startled to see an unknown frost demon standing a few dozen feet away. Bravo, Glacier. Bravo, he says, looking around at the destroyed landscape. Or should I say, Lee. Hearing his real name startles him, the first time in decades that another person had spoken it aloud. He pushes himself to his feet, holding his side as best he can. Who the fuck are you? Ah, yes, I see you recognize the name. Looks like my search processes are moving much faster at last. Ice says, holding his hands wide. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, but I don't really have the time for it. Glacier stared at the frost demon, wondering what was happening, but internally shrugged. In the end, it didn't really matter. This was heading towards violence, and he couldn't say he minded. With a push, his body glowed, exploding in a bright flash of blue light that seared the already molten ground, sending shards of half-melted glass flying in every direction. As the light cleared, Glacier stood nearly half a foot taller, his normal pallid skin dark blue, his bio-armor a clear crystal that gave off slight refraction of the light. His tail snapped down, causing a fracture in the ground that traveled for miles. The frost demon watched him with amusement as the dust at last faded away. My, you have been busy. Time Nest, Cronoa, stop. Trunks yells, trying to pull away from her. He's right there. You stop, Trunks. Cronoa says, pushing him back. We don't know what we're dealing with here. You nearly died last time. I don't care. This is my job. I'm meant to protect the time stream, not sit back and watch it be destroyed. Trunks says furiously. I know, Trunks. Cronoa says sadly. But you're one of the strongest fighters we have, and he held his own against you. He implied he could get even stronger. I'm worried we'll lose you. And then what? Trunks stared down at the floor for a moment before shaking his head. I have to try. Cronoa opened her mouth to say no, but stopped. Even she knew that Trunks was a hero, and that heroes didn't sit idly by. Universe 17, Timeline 1, Freezer Planet 2, I'd tell you to leave. But I'd rather just kill you and be done with it, Glacier says, as the air around him swirls with his energy. The frost demon smiles, seemingly laughing at a joke only he recognized, before disappearing. Where Glacier thinks before his mind goes blank. He looks down, a thin hand sticking out of his chest, coated in blood. All that power, Ice whispers, as his hand fills with energy, and not a lick of self-preservation. With a yank, he rips it free, the energy vaporizing the smaller frost demon. As he does so, he steps back, the world cracking around him as he enters the space between worlds. Time Nest, damn it, Trunks yells as the time scroll sizzles and smokes. Cronoa grimaces as she reaches out, lightly touching it. She yanks back as though burned, shaking her head. All dead. What are we supposed to do, Cronoa? Trunks asks, clutching the table. Goku is still searching for Vegeta. Until he finds him, I don't know. Unknown with a slight pop, I appeared, startling several small green-skinned creatures that go running. I take a deep breath of air, my first in several hours, blinking heavily in the bright light. While I didn't need to breathe, it still felt weird to not do so. My eyes are finally clear enough to see, as I sense two beings appear behind me. I turn, eyeing both of them. Hey there, I say, slightly awkwardly. The two look at each other, before looking back at me. The one on the left finally decides to speak. What brings you here, child? Ah, that's not easy to explain, I reply, laughing. First, where is here? You don't know where you are. You came here, did you not? The second one asks. Well, yeah. I came here because I sensed energy here. I was kinda lost. I reply, looking around us. You're on Yardrat, child. You came here using instant transmission. The first says, surely you knew this. Where else would you have learned the technique? Oh, well fuck. Yardrat, I blink, staring up at the rounded face of the Yardrat elder. He blinks back. Silence. I glance around. The other Yardrats do little more than stare between us. Silence, eh? I begin to speak. She, one of the guards, says again, stopping me in my tracks. I blink. He blinks. The elder says, at last, very interesting. I glance at the shushing guard, who is nodding that I can at last talk. What's interesting, if I may ask? I ask, almost flinching at the expected she. My name is Pybara Saiyan, child. I am the elder of Yardrat, he says, joyfully. Hi Pybara, my name is KLL, I reply, looking up at him. Your spirit is interesting, he replies, explaining at last. On the one hand, it is calm, a placid lake, the ocean at night, a soft breeze on a clouded day. On the other, it burns with the ferocity of a wildfire, the anger of 1,000 dead and dying. Yet it also shows the hallmarks of the ability to manipulate your spirit, hence your usage of one of our prized techniques. That sounds correct, I reply. When I access my full power, it can be uncontrollable. Pybara says once more. How did you come to know instant transmission? I once met this Quadrant's deity, King Kai. He taught it to me to help me defeat Frieza, I explain. The group of Yardratians gasp, murmuring. You would defeat Frieza? Pybara asks, cocking his head. He is immensely powerful. I am able to sense him, even from here. While you are strong, I do not think you quite measure up. I'm quite a bit stronger than I look. I'm at barely 10% of my easily accessible power, I explain. The others murmur again, even as Pybara speaks up again. Even so, Frieza would still be stronger. I frown, wishing I could explain better. The part of my spirit that burns like a wildfire. That part of my power would burn Frieza to ash. Along with the planet he is on, I thought but did not say. I see, Pybara says, before drifting into silence. Would it be cool if I hang out here for a bit? I ask. I know I showed up unannounced and all, but I could use a few days rest. You may stay. While I may not be a fan of an outsider knowing one of our techniques, I cannot argue with its usage, Pybara explains, sending another murmur through the crowd. I would ask, however, that you accept training. Your spirit fights against itself, and it is painful to sense. With you throwing yourself across the galaxy haphazardly, I would be remiss if I did not help you. New mission. Learn Spirit Control to 500 XP feet. Spirit Control LVL1. I read the new alert, before nodding. I have no objections to that, I reply, shrugging. I never say no to training. So be it, KLL. Welcome to Yardrat, Pybara replies, smiling. Sober, please get our new friend a place to stay. Yes, Elder. One of the many Yardrats says, stepping forward. I am sober, please, follow me. Gotta admit, this was an interesting turn of events. I didn't know much about Yardrat, outside of their appearance in Goku-related flashbacks. I wasn't sure what training they could offer, but I was always willing to try. Sober, right? I asked, getting a slight nod as I followed him through the streets. What training was the elder talking about? Spirit control, young Saiyan. It's the hallmark behind all of our abilities, he replies, turning down a side street. I got that part. I just don't understand beyond that. For instant transmission, I match my energy to another and move it around. It locks in, and I jump. I explain. He pauses, seeming to frown, before turning round to face me. I don't think that is how I would describe it, no. Here, allow me to show you. He reaches his hand out, which I stare at for a second, before reaching out and grasping it. As my hand is in his, the world around us shatters, graying out. I can tell that you recognize this. This is an unfocused use of instant transmission. I did not lock to another's energy, I simply slipped between dimensions. Spirit control is based on so much more, Sober says as I nod. There is a feeling in the air, as his body shudders, before growing and growing and growing, towering above the tallest buildings. Spirit control is used by shifting, growing, even splitting one's energy. His voice rumbles, filling the void around us. As he speaks, his body splits, spreading out into two different beings. As someone that has personally seen Tien use the multiform technique, I immediately felt that this was different. Each one did not have the hollow feeling I'd normally feel from a cloning technique. A moment later, and he has shrunk back down to my size, combining back together those of the standard abilities. You are already halfway there, being able to use instant transmission. Soba explains before the world snaps back into focus around us. With a motion of his hand, he leads me into the building we had stopped in front of. After a discussion with the person at the front, I'm led upstairs and to a room near the top. You are free to explore the city. Someone will come for you when your training is to begin, Soba says, turning to leave. Thanks, Soba, I appreciate it. He waves back as he leaves, before disappearing with a pop. That is kinda annoying. Planet Vegeta, my king, I bring good news, Raditz announces, bowing as he enters the chambers. The throne room had been repaired after the assassination of King Nappa. The council had fought, unsure who to elect as the new king, before someone had finally had a good idea. What good news do you bring me, Captain? Indivia asks, child king of the Saiyans. At his right, Lord Squash, one of the council, watched on, ready to interject as needed. The idea to return the kingdom to Indivia as a figurehead, while the council ruled from behind closed doors, had been his idea. The sensor team has tracked down the location of the Class 9 explosion. They believe that the anomaly may have been involved from the energy expenditure, Raditz explains. Indivia glances at the council member, but receives no direction. I see, keep me posted, please. Has your father returned yet? No, my lord. He hasn't come back yet, Raditz explains. I heard from him a week ago. He says he might be back before month's end. At this, Lord Squash does finally interject. Do you know where Bardock left to, Raditz? No, Lord Squash. He does this now and then though. Probably training. Or planet scouting, Raditz answers. See to it that when you speak to him once more, then you ensure that he returns prior to month's end. Lord Frieza plans to visit, and having our best on the planet would be advised.